Welcome back. Now we have a sword, and we'd like to attach it to our character. We'd like it to be in our character's hand. And in order to do that, we're going to make use of sockets. Sockets can be added to the skeleton of a skeletal mesh. Let's see how this works. I'm going to go into our characters folder and open bp/character so I can select the mesh and browse to it from the details panel here. So hitting browse to Echo, here's my Echo skeletal mesh. And I can double click that to open it up and click on skeleton tree to see the skeleton. Now this skeleton already has a number of sockets on it, but we're going to add one. And we'll see exactly how they work and what they can do. I'm going to search for hand. And we have a bone called hand_R, and it's right here. In fact, if we move and rotate the hand R bone, we see the hand rotating along with it. The mesh is skinned to that bone. We can add a socket to this bone. And to do that, we right-click on the hand R bone and click Add Socket. And by default, the socket is called hand_R socket. Now we can rename it by clicking on it, and I'd like to rename this socket to right hand socket. And now we have a socket in the exact same location as the hand bone. And sockets can have things attached to them. Now here's why they're so useful. If we attach something to the socket rather than attaching it to the actual hand bone itself, we can move the socket relative to the bone, and because it's attached to that bone, it'll move along with that bone. Now we can add a preview mesh to the socket to see what it would look like if we had attached a mesh to it in game. To add a preview mesh, we right-click on our socket and we have Add Preview Asset. And we can search for an asset to add. I'm going to search for sword and select our sword static mesh. And here's what it would look like if we attached a sword to the hand. And it looks kind of funny because it's sort of going through the hand. It looks like someone stabbed her in the hand and she's walking around with this stuck to her hand. Now, if we had just attached this straight to the hand bone, this is what it would look like. But because we used a socket instead, we can move the socket relative to the hand. We can click on this icon to translate objects, and we can move the socket. We're not moving the hand bone, we're moving the actual socket that we attached to the hand bone. And this allows us to move this relative to the hand so that once we actually go and attach it to the hand, this is what it'll look like. And we can rotate and translate. I'm going to turn off snapping so I can rotate this and try to get it at the correct angle here. So it might take a little bit of tweaking, but this is what it would look like. And we can even see what this would look like on an animation. If I expand the right tab here and click on Preview Scene Settings, we can choose to preview this mesh using our animation blueprint, for example. If we click the drop-down for Preview Controller, we can select Use Specific Animation, and this allows us to select an animation asset. For example, I can search for idle and choose that, and here's what it looks like in the idle pose with our preview mesh. And we can pause the animation and move the mesh around and try to get it looking just right. Now, ultimately, we'd like an attack animation, as we're going to plan on attacking with this sword, so we really want to see what this looks like when she's swinging it at an enemy. And for that, we need animation assets, and we're going to get those in the next lecture. So for this lecture, we now know what sockets are. They're a type of tool that we can add to our skeleton and add them attached to bones on our skeleton. And we can even move them relative to those bones, but they'll move along with those bones. They'll keep that relative transform. And sockets can be used to attach things like weapons, such as this sword. So they're really useful. So we're one step closer to being able to use swords in our game. The next step is to get an attack animation that we can use to swing the sword. That'll be our next step. Great job. I'll see you soon.